What's up, everyone? Friday edition of Cluster Fun. Danny Cunningham, Derek Wetmore, Phil Mackey. With these two in the room, you can guess we're probably going to talk baseball, and we have a team coming home off of a road trip for a 4-game home series this weekend against the Detroit Tigers, and that team just absolutely hits bombs, guys.
Yeah. Dude, they are on pace. Is it 300 or is it under 300?
Under just barely. 296.
But I feel like this franchise, you could probably, in the last 20 years, like how many times do they even hit 220 home runs? They don't. Now the whole league is up in home runs.
Do you guys think the ball is juiced? Like I have to ask that right off the bat.
It is. The ball's juiced, but so every team is hitting more home runs.
Mm-hmm.
But the Twins have hit, I believe, going into this weekend's games, the 4th most home runs in the league.
Okay.
And have played like the 3rd fewest games because they've had so many rainouts
because they
and
didn't put a roof on the stadium.
Right, exactly. Because they didn't put a roof.
Which is why they have 4 games this weekend, because they have to play 2 on Saturday because there's no roof at Target.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting.
Doubleheaders are cool.
More bonds this weekend.
That's right.
But so we talked with Glenn Perkins on the Scarlet Twin Show, podcastable anywhere you find your favorite podcast, and we essentially, like, the Twins for a long time have been wide open to criticism when you see a guy like David Ortiz lead the organization get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Gomez lead the organization become an all-star. You see Aaron Hicks.
It's right there.
There he is.
He never left.
Probably headless on this video, but that is Carlos
He
Gomez.
is a vital part of Cluster Fun, guys.
He is.
He's here every day.
He's a grinder, man. He co-hosts every single day.
Yes.
Often
too quiet, though.
Aaron Hicks goes to the Yankees, becomes an all-star caliber player,
Mm-hmm.
and gets better after leaving the Twins. The Twins are taking their internal guys and dudes off the scrap heap, like Martin Perez, who had a 6 ERA in Texas last year, had no business even being in the major leagues, and the Twins said, we're more interested in that guy than Dallas Keuchel, not because pull ads are cheap, but because we genuinely think this guy's a better pitcher if we just tell him to throw this pitch more, that pitch less, and send him on his way. Mitch Garver has gone from performing at like his 20th percentile and being a decent hitter in the minor leagues and in the major leagues to having the same OPS as Christian Yelich through the first month and a half of the season.
I had not heard of Mitch Garver, and this dude, all he does is hit bombs now.
It's ridiculous.
Barry Bonds.
So I'm just sort of fascinated by, like, we can judge front offices as fans and media through free agent signings and through wins and losses and things that you can see on the surface. Did you spend money on a big free agent? Yes or no, check mark for you or not if you're a GM.
Mm-hmm.
What's hard to quantify is all the behind the curtain stuff that you don't know the process of. Like, you don't know what they're telling some of these pitchers. You don't know what kind of technology and analytics they're using. But to see some of these players playing at their peak potential shows you that what they're doing behind the scenes is working, and the money they've invested in systems and processes behind the scenes, albeit boring to speculate and talk about, is the thing that's driving the Twins' success.
Well, what strikes me is how much they don't seem to care about that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
about what people think.
Yeah, you could go out
They
and
should
say,
only just care about wins and losses and bombs, really.
It looks that way. I mean, based on their outcomes, they could go out and brag about the bodies they've added and research and development, and look, they could go thump their chest right now about Martin Perez if they wanted to.
But then that could backfire on them. Say
Right.
Give him
he
one more
doesn't
month.
pitch like
Right.
this. I think you
Give
have to wait a little bit long. I would even say wait until the All-Star break.
You know what?
Before you want to talk
Glenn
about
Perkins
that one.
told us yesterday that, so he's got a 2nd-year option. They gave him like a pretty cheap deal, 1-year deal, and said team option for next year. It's like $7.5 million. Perk said on the Glenn Perkins on Baseball yesterday, he said that they are going to be picking up that option for sure, and they're going to do it yesterday. So the Twins are going to travel back in time. I might even just pull it back into reality and say, like, this weekend maybe announce that you're picking that thing up.
I would say wait to make sure
it
that
does
he
not look like a fluke to me, man.
I would say wait to make sure he doesn't get hurt towards the end of the year, because that's a possibility.
He's got Tommy John in September.
Yeah, and then you're on the hook for $7 million for this guy. I don't think that would be the ideal scenario.
Man, he's earning it. Like, he looks like the real deal. And to your point, like, they basically chose. You could have gotten Keuchel this winter, and I mean, you still.
I mean, you still can.
You still could.
No one's gotten him.
But they could have said, all right, Dallas Keuchel, you're signed. Martin Perez, good luck with wherever your career takes you next. And instead they said, we'll make this bet. I'm not saying it's like either or in a vacuum. But if you think about it like that to the logical extreme, they did choose to carve out a rotation spot for Perez, say no thanks to Dallas Keuchel, at least at whatever the asking price was. I mean, I don't know what those conversations were like, but they didn't respond when people said, "You're cheap, you're idiots, you don't know what you're doing." They just kind of like sat there and quietly were like, "Well, I don't know, we'll see."
But let me
and
ask,
6 weeks in, they're like, "Gotcha."
let me ask this: if they've made Martin Perez this, what could they have done with Dallas Keuchel?
Yeah, well,
that's because that's the other side of the coin that I think is it's not going to happen, and it's not worth criticizing them for, but it's also worth thinking about and fun to think about.
I think there's it's easy to say, if you're a Twins fan, well, they chose Martin Perez over Dallas Keuchel because the poll ads are cheap.
Sure.
But 30 teams have looked at Dallas Keuchel and said, oof. And that's 30 teams, probably 27 of which are all in on some of the same information and analytics that the Twins have. And so I just think it's fascinating where we're at with, like, you use the phrase making a bet on a player. I mean, it's like they walked up to a blackjack table and they're doubling down on hands that you would ordinarily think, like, well, blackjack's been around for centuries. Yeah. This is how you play blackjack. And the Twins and the Astros and some other teams are saying, actually, there's a new way to play blackjack, and this is the more efficient, strategic way to play it. So I think if they're able to take, to your point, if they're able to take guys like Martin Perez and turn him into a monster, forget about free agents for a second, like Dallas Keuchel. What are they going to be able to do with some of these internal draft picks and international signings?
Mm-hmm.
Post Johan Santana from 2008 all the way through like the last couple of years, Jose Berrios is really the only pitcher they've developed internally, the old Terry Ryan front office. But if they're able to do this type of stuff with Kyle Gibson pitching really well and with Martin Perez, what are they going to do with Gratterall? What are they going to do with some of the other guys that they've drafted in the first, second, third rounds the past 5 years?
And add at a trade deadline, maybe get a little bit out. I mean,
let's go there.
Yeah.
How soon is too soon to start looking? Because especially this year, where now there's only one trade deadline. The waiver trade deadline is no more at the end of August, which I always found exciting and fun, and that's part of the way the Astros won the World Series a couple years back when they added Justin Verlander at like 11:59 on August 31st.
Do you think he would have, if there was only one trade deadline? Quick deviation here. I wonder if he would have still pulled the trigger, because like, he had to make a decision at the last deadline. But if the last deadline was July 31st, I still think he's an Astro. But then the August 31st deadline does make it more interesting for teams that are on the fence, because they could still maybe be buyers for an extra month. So
or even last year, the Josh Donaldson trade, where he was a guy that wasn't healthy and really couldn't be traded at the first deadline, but got healthy enough and started playing rehab games in the minor leagues, and then ended up getting traded right before the waiver deadline. Do you guys like that that's gone away?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, because, and I don't know this, but one of the reasons, like, if I'm a player under contract and I see my name floating out there on Twitter.com, it says like so and so was put on waivers, and the team's gonna rightly say, well, it's just procedural, like, we just do that for everybody, don't take offense to it. But also, if you're not going to trade me, don't put me on waivers.
Yeah.
So now that you don't have to deal with that, you're not worried about that if you're, Nelson Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
You're a veteran, you're here, we invested in you. I like that it went away. You didn't see huge moves typically. Justin Verlander was kind of the exception to the rule. You mentioned JD. That's a weird one too because of the health.
Injury,
But you asked the question, how early is too early? And I don't think it's too early right now. The Twins are in first place. The Indians look vulnerable. If you think that there are spots that you can shore up and you're the Twins, start making those phone calls right now.
You're probably, I feel like the earlier trades happen, the more teams tend to overpay, just because
maybe
you'd have to wow a team with an offer in May or June to get them to not try to pawn it off on like 3 other teams. But I think the Twins are in a spot where if this division is theirs, and if the offense is top 3 in the majors, and like their number 9 hitter leads the majors in doubles, or is top 3 in doubles, there's not a break in this lineup, you can afford and probably should look to overpay, meaning if you have to give up 3 prospects instead of 2, I think they can hang on. This is the spot they're in. I think they can hang on to their 2 best prospects, Kirilloff and Royce Lewis, and maybe even Gratterall, their best pitching prospect, and still get a meaningful piece as a number 2 starter in their rotation before the deadline. And I think this is the summer that we've been waiting for since 2010. This is the first time in 9 years they've been in a spot and really, really good. They've had two 2 years where they finished above 500 since 2010. 1 year they played the wild card game against the Yankees.
And that was even a weird summer because they
Yes.
kind of sold and
Yeah.
then bought and
Right.
then kind of sold again, and
Right.
they still made the playoffs.
They weren't definitively awesome leading into the trade deadline. The last time they were was
Mhm.
2010, and they sort of chickened out at the trade deadline. They could have got Cliff Lee. They didn't want to put Aaron Hicks in a trade, so they settled on Matt Capps as their closer. Like, he was their one piece. Dude never pitched in a playoff game because they got smoked by the Yankees 3 times. So this is the first time in 9 years they've been in a position where we know they're going to be good, we know they have assets to trade, and we know they need to add a piece or two. So there's really no excuse not to pull the trigger here in the next couple months.
And I think they're going to.
I do too.
And I just personally would change my sights. Like, I don't think it's make the postseason. I think it's be a threat in October.
Well,
and so I keep hearing
think
people
in
say,
baseball, any team that does make the postseason is a threat because it's such a
Yeah.
game of random variation. Like, you can win your division with 86 games if you're in a really bad
Right.
division, and you can go on and win the World Series.
but
It's
it's
happened before.
not like 55-45 though.
But you're
like-
still a threat.
Sure.
That's my line of thinking. It's baseball is so much different than
Yeah.
basketball because in
Right.
basketball it's always
8
the
seed's
talent
not a
that wins
threat.
out.
Yeah.
Yes, the eight seeds. The Clippers were never going to beat the Warriors.
Right,
The
right,
Pistons were
right.
never going to beat the Bucks this year.
Yeah.
But the wild card team wins the World Series
Sure.
all the time in baseball.
So I don't quite agree with one thing that you said, which is go find a number 2 starter. I think go find somebody who's better than Berrios. Make Berrios your number 2
here's my
starter.
Twins Kool-Aid take.
All right.
It's semantics. I don't know how many pitchers in the majors are definitively better than Jose Barrios right now.
Well, even then,
And I don't know how many are available.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
It's not how many are better than him; it's how many
Like,
are available.
Are
It's
there
a fun list.
Are there 10 pitchers starting pitchers you can say without debate are better than Jose Barrios the first 6 weeks as he's entering his prime too in 2019? And how many of those 10, if there's even 10, are available?
But also, it's not. Sure, you would rather have Berrios for the rest of his career, the rest of his contract, than a lot of these guys. But it's
Well,
also, who would you rather have for
in
the
the
next
ALDS.
3 months?
Yeah.
Like, that's also,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not.
Like
well,
Madison-
Berrios is going to be a better pitcher, but he might not be right now, and he might not be 3 months from now.
Yeah.
And he's not a guy that has postseason experience, where
Right.
a lot of these other top 10 pitchers probably do.
Like Mad Bum, I agree. So there's an audiogram I think floating around on
Mhm.
scrolling on social media where we posed the question, would you trade Miguel Sano, 2.5 years of Miguel Sano for, 4 months of well, no, he's a free agent, 4 months of Madison Bumgarner. And the frequent response back, which is correct, is he's not the same guy he was a few years ago. I don't even really care.
You're
If he's-
trading Sano
Well,
for Bumgarner?
in the moment I said I would, but I was
You
also
got a
like
little
super
doubt, huh?
drunk on Twins Kool-Aid and like Mad Bum's the
All
final
right.
piece. I
Okay,
need to think
okay.
a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But if I could trade Miguel Sano at his peak, knowing I'm not going to pay him a long-term contract, to add a piece that can help me win a World Series, I would
Mhm.
strongly consider that. I'd rather get a guy if you can include him in a Trevor Bauer trade and get 1.5 years of Trevor Bauer, that's a better trade-off than rent a Bumgarner on the way down the mountain.
Yeah.
But I don't need Madison Bumgarner to be the guy he was 4 years ago. I just need him to be a really good number 2 starter behind
Sure.
Jose Barrios, who can give me 6 innings in a playoff game that maybe Michael Pineda or Jake Odorizzi might not. So
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Is he better than Martin Perez right now?
Wow, look at
Right,
us right
see?
now. It's funny that that's even a conversation.
This is
I mean,
where
is
I'm
Jose
at.
Berrios even better than Martin Perez right now?
Good question. He's one of the 10 starters, but
Yeah,
the Twins can't
he's
trade
one
for
of
him.
those. Odorizzi's in that mix of 10 too, I think.
So this is where I think the Twins are at. And by the way, I'm watching MLB Network here. Did you see Anthony Rizzo homered yesterday?
No, but
Watch out! Look over your shoulder in the
you have
home
two
run
guys.
draft.
You have 2 guys on your team that have not hit a home run. One's played 1 game, I think.
Shohei Ohtani's back, so
How
look
many
out.
home runs has he hit?
None yet.
He's
but
gonna hit 12.
That's coming. So here's where I'm at with the Twins, and I'm probably drinking the same Kool-Aid that Phil is. Right now, what you have is a really encouraging picture. You've seen the playoff odds for sites that try to track that kind of flip, and it was Cleveland favored, and now it's Twins, and I guarantee you it's going to hover around Shohei Ohtani with a base hit up the middle.
Those don't count.
They don't count. I know.
He can have all the base. I hope he hits 400 with 230
and all
singles.
singles, yeah.
Don't care.
So, I think that they're in a really good spot playoff percentage-wise, largely because of what happened to the Indians. Sorry, Danny. But
It's okay.
they're both just kind of going to teeter back and forth in the AL Central lead. But what the Twins have is really interesting. They have 4 good starting pitchers right now. They have 4 relievers that you mostly trust and 1 guy that you trust. That's a pretty good spot to be. And then you have one of the best offenses in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the best offense in the American League right now.
It's we were talking with Rami about this, and if you've been watching the Twins, well, I was going to say for the last 10 years, but even like if you watch the playoff teams from 2002 through 2010, those teams always let you down in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
The teams the last 10 years let you down in April or some other time.
Which
early
would
in
you
the
rather?
season.
Would you rather be let down in April or the playoffs?
We'll take October.
Yeah.
We'll take October.
Same.
But
Ticket sales are better.
I get that there's a lot of people who have lost faith in the organization
Mm-hmm.
and who are sitting here with maybe 1 foot on the bandwagon, and I don't blame those people because the Twins have a lot of work to do. They can't just get hot for April and 2 weeks in May and expect, oh, we're going to fill the ballpark again.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to fans are just fully bought into this then. They're probably going to have to do this for a full season, maybe even do something in the postseason and then get fans in. If you look, so the Twins were dormant from 1993 through 2000. They come in, surprise everybody in 2001, just like they're doing this year. That was a full group of young players. This is sort of young players mixed with Nelson Cruz's, right?
Yeah.
And attendance, like, it took a couple months before they started drawing more than 15,000 people for games. And even then, it was the 2002-03 season where you saw attendance spike, if I'm not mistaken. So I totally get where fans are coming from, but I personally believe you can't fake the level of hitting that they've given you in the first 5 or 6 weeks. Like, you can't fake. Nelson Cruz ain't fake news. Like, put that on a T-shirt. Nelson Cruz ain't fake news. Jonathan Scope was an MVP candidate 2 years ago.
Well, he got MVP votes.
Okay.
I know. He was a good player.
He was like,
He wasn't Alex Bregman. He's a good player.
thanks, Derek.
Yeah, I'm just making sure.
He had 35 home runs.
I'm just making
It
sure.
was awesome.
I'm
He
just making
was
sure.
also a dumpster last year. He was terrible.
Yeah,
in
it was.
Milwaukee.
He was bad.
It's true, but he's your 8 hitter.
Right.
Like, that
right.
dude's your number 8 hitter, and he's going to hit 25 home runs this year. And Byron Buxton's your number 9 hitter, and he's going to steal 40 bases and hit 40 doubles we're on pace for. So it's not like the lineup is. It's going to be a top 5 lineup in baseball.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of what are the 2 pieces you can add to the bullpen and the starting rotation to make you feel really good down the stretch.
Did you hear Rami yesterday on Mackey and Judd with Rami say, and I'll just run this question by you. He said, there's no one in the American League that scares me if I'm the Twins right now. He said, 1, they're winning the Central. 2, once you get to October, there's no team that scares you. Lineup-wise, I get what he's saying. Like, you can go toe-to-toe with the Astros. You can go toe-to-toe with at least the injured Yankees.
There's a
the Red
stadium
Sox.
and a uniform that scares me. We're watching it on MLB Network.
Yeah,
Like,
and they
the
have pinstripes on it.
The Yankees can literally put anyone on the field in that uniform, and the Twins lose 2 out of 3. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's
I
sick,
think
so.
it's kind of silly to say that right now, especially
That's-
with the state of the Yankees in terms
Yeah.
of who's all on
I
their
agree with
disabled
that.
list.
Call
Like,
back when Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton.
yeah, like
Right.
you can't tell me that lineup's not terrifying when they're healthy.
I agree with
And even the Astros, they're a team that's proven that they can go out and win in October.
Yeah.
The Twins have been great for the first month and change so far,
Yeah.
but they haven't proven a damn thing yet, and
I
that
agree with that.
comes to light in October too.
Can I throw a quick plug in since I think we're nearing the end of Cluster Fun?
You can plug whatever you'd like to plug.
And maybe
Wow.
you might have been set to plug this, but Danny Cunningham and Manny Hill, produced by Lindsey Brown, we're going to have a new live Sunday show, 10 o'clock to noon, every single Sunday starting this Sunday, Score North Sundays, and I'm assuming you're going to bring some takes for the first episode.
There will be takes, plenty of takes. There will be
Okay.
takes, and there will be a lot of fun things. We
Nice.
actually had a little meeting last night when we went over some fun bits that we've got planned. It's going to be
Cool.
a good time.
Awesome.
Really
Nice.
excited. For
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It. Yeah, can't wait. So
Didn't know we got to plug anything when we came on.
yeah, what do
Go
you
ahead.
want to plug?
Plug
Derek?
away. Fish
Well-
Tank Friday?
Yeah, that's coming up. Check my Instagram. No, the Glenn Perkins on baseball was really good yesterday. I was listening back to it actually on the way into work today, and Perk just like sometimes gets going on his. He's like peeling back the curtain of what it's like to be in a major league clubhouse and how you think
Yeah.
as a front office member and all those kinds of things. And sometimes I find myself just sitting there being like listening for 10 straight minutes of Perk just pearls of wisdom. So it was a lot of fun.
Okay, but how do you like listening back to yourself speak? Because I personally hate it.
It's
like
dreadful.
I hate listening to things that I've already said.
Well, listen to my voice, and then you can make an informed guess on what it's like to hear that back as myself, but it's dreadful, but it's important.
I like to play myself back at like 3 times speed just to sound like a chipmunk.
Or
mostly.
you should half speed and you sound hammered.
Yeah.
I sound half speed, and I sound like Manny Hill.
That I think that's the best way to do it. If you just want to sound drunk, put yourself at half speed.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. It's great. The takes don't get any better, but the voice sounds funny.
Yes, the takes sound like they're coming out at 2 a.m. at your local watering hole. That's what the takes sound like. Guys, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Today.
Thanks for having us.
For Phil and Derek, I'm Danny. Thanks for watching Cluster Fun. We'll be back on Monday at 11. Be sure to stay tuned on Sunday at 10, where myself, Manny Hill, and Lindsey Brown will be bringing you Score North Sundays. Talk to you then.